More. We're going to find out more about the 80th anniversary of the Seabees. The Seabees' birthday is actually March 5th, but we're getting the celebration started a little bit early. We have joining us Dr. Laura Godby. She's the director of the U.S. Navy Seabee Museum. Hey, Dr. Godby.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Can I be the first to wish you a happy 80th anniversary or birthday or however you're going to celebrate it?
Thank you very much.
What is the appropriate term? Is it anniversary or is it a birthday? How are y'all approaching it?
Well, I mean, technically it's an anniversary, but the Seabees definitely see it as a birthday. It's something that they celebrate every year, and most Seabees celebrate it by having a huge Seabee Ball celebration. Which will be happening all over the world.
And I would think that the 80th would need to be a big one. It's a big milestone. Now, for many of us, Dr. Godby, I feel like we've heard the term Seabee before, and maybe we can connect it to the military and the Navy somehow, but walk us through exactly what they are and why they're so special.
Sure. The Seabees are the Navy's construction battalions. That's how the term got started, for C for construction, B for battalion. Many people have probably seen their logo. It looks like a bumblebee, if you will, but it's carrying tools and a Tommy gun. And the Seabees were started in World War II.
So how many are still around, at least in the United States, or where are they now? Now that World War II is over, we're 80 years removed, what are they still doing for us?
Believe it or not, they're still doing the exact same mission that they did in World War II. They are building and fighting and building things for the U.S. Navy. Right now, the force size is about 14,000, and they are spread all over the country. The Seabees have two major home ports. One of them is in Fort Hueneme, California, and the other is in Gulfport, Mississippi.
Which is pretty cool. And I think, too, whenever disaster strikes, we're under some weather alerts right now, Dr. Godby, so we're kind of heightened to that. The Seabees get up and help with that, too, correct?
They sure do. Seabees do humanitarian efforts and disaster recovery around the world. They are able to get pretty much anywhere on the globe in about 48 hours, and because of their construction skills, they're often called in to rescue things after a disaster has happened.
So let's go back 80 years ago. Whose idea was it that felt that there needed to be the creation of the Seabees? Like, why was it so important and so, vital that we had those back during World War II?
Sure. Well, the father of the Seabees is an admiral named Ben Morrell, and he was the chief of the Civil Engineer Corps and the commander of the Bureau of Yards and Docks. And his group had already been managing construction contracts in the Pacific, on places like Guam and Wake Island, places that people have heard of. But then when Pearl Harbor happened, we no longer could have civilian contractors working in a battle zone. Primarily because they're not protected by any Geneva Conventions and nobody wanted them to get hurt. So Ben Morrell had the idea that we needed a militarized construction force. And so he got that approved, and the first Seabees were shipped out toward the Pacific in January of 1942.
So how would one, and what would be the correct term for, you say serviceman or woman, or man or woman, servicemen and women, excuse me. What would be the correct term if you work in the Seabee?
You're a Seabee.
Oh, you're a Seabee. Okay.
Seabee is a Seabee.
There you go. A Seabee is a Seabee. So a
Seabee is a Seabee as long as they live.
As long as they live. Okay. So how does one find themselves having the right resume or to become a Seabee?
Well, a Seabee is a rate within the Navy. Actually, there's 7 Seabee rates within the Navy. But it's like any other kind of Navy personnel. They get recruited, they choose that career path, and they go with it. They go to regular boot camp, which is up in Great Lakes. But then they normally then go to one of the A schools. They learn their trade. They're all construction trades, things like construction mechanic, construction electrician, engineering aide, which is like a draftsman, utilities man, which is like a plumber. They learn their trade, and then they get sent either to a battalion, and they go out somewhere in the world, or they work in public works, and they work on construction and maintenance here in the United States.
Now, Dr. Godby, you are the director of the U.S. Navy Seabee Museum. Sadly, that's there in California. I don't know if many of us will be making that trip for the 80th anniversary. But is there any interesting history there about Gulfport?
Of course. Of course. I mean, Gulfport has always been it has been a major part of the Seabee world. Actually, it was there were 4 advanced base depots during World War II, and the second largest was the one in Gulfport. It was established in June of 1942, and the reason that it was established in Gulfport is because there were railways there was a pier, and most importantly, it was very near the Caribbean. Early in the war, there was a concern that that Germans might block the Panama Canal, and so the Seabees that shipped out of Gulfport did a lot of construction throughout the Caribbean to protect that area.
Pretty interesting.
And so, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much underappreciated when it comes to the Seabees and our military sort of in general, but I'll have to admit, this one of our local Seabees reached out about the anniversary, and so I'm learning all of this new, Dr. Godby, today, and I think this is super, super cool and interesting that we have this right here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and I don't know that if most of us knew about it. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like when people hear about it, they're like, oh, I didn't know Seabees were up to such good?
What's so funny about the Seabees is some people don't know what Seabees are at all. Those that do, everybody has a father or an uncle who are the Seabees. But many people don't even know they still exist. But they do. I mean, you have Seabees right there in your backyard. There have been Seabees stationed in Gulfport nonstop since 1966.
We got a text in from Mike from Grand Bay listening to Good Things. Dr. Godby said his dad was in the 105th in World War II as a Seabee. As soon as you said someone's dad or granddad was a Seabee, we got the text sort of coming in, and I feel like, well, this is just an interesting piece to the whole story that we can learn a little bit more about. Are there ways to learn more about Seabees or take part in any of the celebrations coming up in the next couple of weeks?
There sure are. The museum actually, being like the National Navy Seabee Museum, even though we're in Port Hueneme, we have information out. I recommend that people visit our website at www.seabeehistory.com. We have so much information up there. We have all the Navy, the Seabee cruise books, so people can go back and look for their dad or look for their mom. We have a lot of information about what the Seabees have done, that type of thing. It's a great resource.
Dr. Godby, how did you get connected with the Seabee Museum?
I'm a professional historian and a museum professional, and I have been working here for 22 years.
Sounds like a really neat job. We've got other texts coming in. Lucas in Union says Camp Shelby in Hattiesburg has Seabees on the base. And Larry in Jackson says we should think about the ones who build the bridges and all. You know, there's just so many moving parts when it comes to active military duty and all the things that go to it. You know, it's good to recognize all the worker bees, really. I love the logo. Is there any story behind why it's a bee other than maybe it is a worker bee?
Yes, actually there is. As I mentioned in the beginning, the term Seabee came from Construction Battalion, and there was a draftsman named Frank Iafredi who was tasked with coming up with a logo. And at one point, he considered making it a beaver, because obviously beavers do a lot of construction. But come to find out, beavers run away if you try to attack their dams in any way. And so the bee became the perfect symbol because they protect, and if you bother them, they will come and fight you, and they will protect their hives.
I love that, and I love learning more about it. And now, as we hear over the next coming weeks of Seabees and their celebration of 80 years, we'll be a little more informed, Dr. Godby, of all the good work that they are doing and still doing. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you talking to me.
All righty. Jason says Seabees are the same as engineer battalions in the Army or Corps of Engineers. We cross-trained quite a bit. We had to send some guys to Gulfport to learn how to build tank bridges to cross certain water hazards overseas. Pretty cool. I'm always open to admit when I don't know something, but I'm always open to learn. And so I totally appreciate Brian and Gulfport, who sent me the opportunity to help all the Seabees celebrate their 80th anniversary or birthday, however you want to call it. I love a party. And yeah, I think it's kind of neat. It's an interesting niche within the military.
I had to chuckle when she said everybody's dad or granddad. My granddad on my dad's side was a Seabee.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So you knew the word.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you knew the music.
And this is the Seabee song.
And I am fascinated now with the bumblebee or the little bee. I'll never look at a bee the same way again, knowing the backstory of the logo and all the things. So kudos. Thank you to all the Seabees and your families, CDs, for their service. All right, you guys stick with us. We got more for you.